Buenos días a todos, a todas, bienvenidos, bienvenidas a esta sesión inaugural de la 19ª reunión española sobre criptología y seguridad de la información. Le vamos a dar la palabra, en primer lugar, a la profesora Pino Caballero, presidenta del Comité Científico.
Muchas gracias, Rector. Muchas gracias, Vicerrectora. A ambos, muchas gracias por estar aquí y muchas gracias a las personas que están en la inauguración. Viene mucha gente a este congreso, somos más de 200 personas. Ahora mismo aquí no hay 200 personas, pero irán llegando. Yo voy a intentar hablar lo más rápido posible, porque sé que el Rector está haciendo un esfuerzo enorme por estar aquí, que tiene un vuelo en breve, tiene que salir corriendo, pero no quiero perder esta oportunidad al inaugurar la 19ª edición de la RECSI para contar lo más rápido que pueda un poco la historia de las 18 ediciones anteriores, que quiero homenajear pues, especialmente a la primera reunión. No sé si Llorens está por aquí todavía o no ha llegado, pero llegará porque viene enseguida. Y bueno, y todas las demás ediciones. Primera en Mallorca, luego Madrid, Barcelona, Valladolid, Málaga. Voy a decirlo muy rápido, aunque podría contar muchas anécdotas de todas ellas, porque como saben, yo he ido a todas. Málaga, Tenerife, o sea, esta es la segunda vez que venimos a Tenerife, Oviedo, Leganés, Barcelona, Salamanca, Tarragona, San Sebastián, Alicante, Menorca, Granada, Lleida, Santander, León y lo que viene después, ¿vale? Entonces, muchos de ustedes se van a encontrar en algunas de las fotos que he escogido para homenajear esto. Lo primero, especialmente sobre la primera reunión española. Esta fue la carta que yo me encontré recién licenciada, buscando gente que trabajara en el tema, una carta de invitación a la primera reunión española de criptografía, recién licenciada yo, y fue una alegría enorme ver que no estaba sola en este mundo queriendo trabajar en materias de criptografía. Este evento se celebró en Mallorca en 1991, al principio eran, como muchos de ustedes o algunos de ustedes saben, era cada año, y aquí lo tengo guardado como oro en paño, esa información sobre la primera reunión. Luego, bueno, y de hecho esa soy yo, como ven, una cara de pibita que no veas, ¿no? Luego vinieron las demás. Siguientes ediciones, de la segunda a la quinta, Madrid, Barcelona. De hecho, en la de Madrid yo ayudé a organizar porque ya estaba haciendo la tesis allí con mi queridísima Amparo, a quien he hecho de menos aquí, porque la estuve animando para que viniera, pero no pudo venir. Tercera, cuarta y quinta. Ahí están los trípticos, porque antes todo se organizaba con trípticos. Luego vino la sexta, que para quienes estuvieron fue aquí en Tenerife. Esa es la foto de grupo, la celebramos en aquella ocasión en el Puerto de la Cruz. Oye, esta vez he querido traerla a Laguna, mi universidad, mi alma mater. Aquella vez la hicimos en el Puerto de la Cruz. Y luego pues vinieron todas las demás, de las cuales pues he puesto ahí algunas fotos de grupo, que las voy a pasar muy rápido porque no quiero que el rector pierda el vuelo, ¿no? Pero muchos de ustedes se van a encontrar, se verán en esas fotos de grupo. ¿Vale? Y ahora estamos en la Laguna, la ciudad más bonita del mundo, patrimonio de la humanidad, para quienes no lo sepan, y estamos en la 19ª RECSI. En esta edición tenemos el libro de actas. Quienes estuvieron ayer en la recepción tuvieron oportunidad de ver esa cristalera de la escalera central preciosa que forma parte de la portada de nuestro libro de actas. Y tenemos, ahora voy a darles información práctica. Tenemos 5 pedazos de ponencias principales. Empezaremos con Jintai en un momentito, que nos va a hablar de postcuántica. Luego les contaré de Jintai. Todos son súper importantes, pero ahora no voy a extenderme. Luego tendremos a Paco, mi Paco, que viene de IBM Research directamente a hablarnos de cuántica. Mañana tendremos a Vincent, ¿qué les voy a decir a ustedes de Vincent, ¿no? El inventor del estándar actual. Luego tendremos a Carmela Troncoso hablando de privacidad. Y por último acabaremos con un poquito de hacking, con Sandra, que es la hacker española probablemente más conocida. No se pierdan ninguna de las conferencias plenarias, por favor. Tenemos un programa apretadísimo, 98 ponencias, 4 sesiones en paralelo. No, por favor, miren los horarios, ¿vale? Porque hemos tenido que montar 2 cafés a diferentes horarios y 2 almuerzos a diferentes horarios. Quienes estén en una sesión normalmente van a tener que tomarse el café y el almuerzo en ese horario, porque si se van directamente a otro, se quedan sin comer y sin tomar café, porque están en paralelo. Miren bien, por favor, los horarios. Todas las charlas son de 20 minutos. No se engañen, ¿eh? 20 minutos, aunque parezca que algunas tienen más tiempo, no es verdad. Si miran el horario verán que todas tienen 20 minutos. Los chairs les he dado órdenes estrictas de que les quiten el micrófono a los 20 minutos. Tendremos, está todo señalizado, toda la gente del staff está pues con esto rojo para que les pregunten dónde están, porque tenemos 3 sesiones aquí y una en informática, ¿vale? Esta noche tendremos la RAM sesión, después de la mesa redonda que tendremos aquí también. No se pierda la RAM sesión, que va a ser la primera RAM sesión de este RECSI. Y en todos los cafés tenemos pósters abajo. Los que tienen los pósters, por favor, estén cerca de su póster para que expliquen su póster. Ay, Dios, estoy extendiéndome demasiado seguramente, ¿no? Vale. El jueves, más apretado todavía, vamos a acabar con la foto de grupo y el cóctel y la cena de gala en el Gran Hotel, que es en la Laguna. Y el viernes ya iremos bajando un poquito el ritmo científico, tendremos una mañana de nuevo de 4 sesiones paralelas, pero por la tarde, si el tiempo nos deja, haremos una excursión guiada por la Laguna. Vamos a ver cómo se porta el tiempo. ¿Vale? Todo el mundo tiene paraguas de todas formas y la Laguna es una ciudad tradicionalmente lluviosa, así que van a vivir la Laguna probablemente en su espíritu más habitual. El sábado vamos a ver si el Teide nos deja ir al Teide y el tiempo y Teresa. Y sean puntuales también, al Teide saldremos muy pronto desde el parking de informática. Me estoy olvidando de un montón de cosas, pero si me ven por ahí con un poquito de calma, me preguntan todo o le preguntan a cualquiera de las personas que tienen esto. Y como no quiero extenderme más, pues muchas gracias por estar aquí, muchas gracias Rector, muchas gracias Vicerrectora.
Tiene la palabra ahora la Vicerrectora de Cultura y Extensión Universitaria.
Muy buenos días, permítanme darles la bienvenida a nuestra casa, la de ustedes también, la Universidad de La Laguna, y expresar mi alegría y mi satisfacción, al igual que la del rector, y veníamos comentando la satisfacción de que se celebre este encuentro nacional que tiene repercusión y convocatoria internacional en nuestra universidad, y además un encuentro que ha demostrado ya sobradamente su estabilidad. Después de 19 ediciones, bueno, superada esa mayoría de edad, que además es mucho más que la mayoría de edad para ser un encuentro bianual, pues la verdad es que nos agrada hacer suyas nuestras instalaciones, nuestros medios y sobre todo nuestro potencial humano. La verdad es que un encuentro como este pues se alinea absolutamente con las misiones prioritarias de una universidad pública como es la Universidad de La Laguna. Cuando hablamos de criptología y seguridad de la comunicación y de la información, pues estamos hablando no solamente de asuntos y temas técnicos y tecnológicos, sino estamos hablando, creo, por encima de todo, de preservar derechos, de garantizar una sociedad de comunicación en un marco democrático y sobre todo de cuidar y preservar la confianza en una sociedad pues cada vez más interconectada, sobra decir. Espero, doy por hecho que este encuentro va a ser altamente nutritivo. Doy las gracias también como Vicerrectora de Cultura y Extensión Universitaria con la competencia de coordinar la labor de las cátedras institucionales y de empresa de nuestra universidad. Doy las gracias efusivamente a nuestra colega, la profesora Pino Caballero, que es una directora pues muy implicada, muy comprometida, con un altísimo nivel de actividad, como ya ha demostrado en esta breve semblanza a lo largo de las 19 ediciones que acaba de dedicarnos. A mí no me queda más que reiterar este sentimiento de satisfacción y que sepan que la Universidad de La Laguna va a estar siempre aquí para próximos encuentros y para cualquier otra iniciativa que pueda surgir en el ecosistema que seguramente se está tejiendo desde ya en el inicio de este encuentro. Que tengan un encuentro nutritivo, productivo y sobre todo que se queden con ganas de volver a la Universidad de La Laguna. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, querida vicerrectora, directora, presidenta del comité científico, colegas. Bueno, yo fundamentalmente estoy aquí precisamente, como decía la vicerrectora, para darles la bienvenida a esta universidad, la Universidad de La Laguna. Somos una universidad, siempre lo decimos, ¿no? Antigua, pero no vieja, ¿no? La prueba es que estamos en pues bueno, comenzando, ¿no? un evento de la máxima trascendencia, pegado a, digamos, la más rabiosa actualidad, ¿no? Como es la ciberseguridad y la criptología, etcétera, ¿no? También les damos la bienvenida, lógicamente, a la ciudad, como ya ha dicho la profesora Pino Caballero. El primer teniente de alcalde del Ayuntamiento de La Laguna finalmente no ha podido estar. Quería estar el alcalde, pero no está en la isla, y el primer teniente de alcalde finalmente tampoco ha podido venir por un tema de logística, en fin, en previsión también de las cuestiones de seguridad que tiene que ver con el clima, ¿no? Bueno, estamos muy orgullosos, muy orgullosas de recibirles en esta universidad de 234 años de edad. Cumplimos 234 años el pasado 11 de marzo, pero estamos, como decíamos, muy preocupados y ocupados con los aspectos que tienen que ver con la actualidad más rabiosa, ¿no? Yo, desde luego, cuando la profesora Pino Caballero estaba hablando de estas 19 ediciones, ¿no? Hablar ahora de ciberseguridad puede parecer algo pues, más natural, casi que es un concepto que el común digamos, de la población media lo entendemos, o por lo menos lo intuimos, pero hace 19 años me parece que eran unos auténticos pioneros y pioneras, ¿no? Hablar de ciberseguridad, en fin, hace 19 años, cuando apenas estaba Internet pues expandiéndose, ¿no? Y llegando al conjunto de la sociedad, pues hablar de estos temas realmente me parece algo increíble, ¿no? Es evidente, ¿no?, que este mundo, ¿no?, de la ciberseguridad, en fin, es un mundo tremendamente importante. Todo lo que puede pasar en el mundo físico puede pasar también en el virtual, ¿no? Todas estas cuestiones de ciberacoso, en fin, realmente es un tema que nos preocupa mucho, también en la universidad. Y para mí es un orgullo, permítame que lo diga, como rector de la Universidad de Laguna, pues poder, pues, digamos, exhibir la potencia que tiene nuestra universidad en este ámbito, ¿no? Tenemos, en fin, la cátedra INCIBE, la cátedra Intercanarias, a la que a ambas instituciones le tenemos que agradecer la implicación que tiene con el conjunto de investigadores e investigadoras liderados por la profesora Pino Caballero. Tenemos un máster en ciberseguridad, también dirigido por la profesora Pino Caballero, que este año además ha dado un paso y se ha convertido en un máster doble, ¿no? En coordinación con otro máster en ingeniería informática que tenemos también nuestro escaparate de estudios de posgrado. Tenemos un grado en ingeniería informática que también está desde el centro, ¿no?, de la Escuela Técnica Superior de Ingeniería y Tecnología, trabajando en otras titulaciones que tienen que ver con la ciencia de datos, etcétera. Tenemos un grupo de investigación liderado por la profesora Pino Caballero también, Cryptography, que es un referente a nivel nacional e internacional. En fin, tenemos múltiples trabajos fin de máster, trabajos fin de grado, que además obtienen premios a nivel nacional en este ámbito y que nos han dado muchas alegrías recientemente. Y bueno, yo creo que para nosotros, como digo, es un orgullo como universidad poder exhibir este pulso y esta fortaleza y este músculo, tanto en docencia como en investigación como en transferencia, ¿no? Socios como Intercanarias, pues bueno, son un ejemplo de ello. Intercanarias, al que le hemos reconocido como premio al mecenazgo el año pasado, en los premios anuales que damos a empresas, instituciones que son mecenas de nuestra universidad, precisamente por su implicación, sobre todo en este ámbito, ¿no?, en este ámbito de conocimiento, ¿no? El éxito, yo creo que de la convocatoria, pues es evidente. Me decía la profesora Pino Caballero que creo que doblamos a al número de inscripciones del congreso anterior. Yo estoy convencido que eso no es porque sea Tenerife donde se desarrolla, ¿no?, sino que tiene que ver precisamente con con el rigor de la organización que me consta por cómo conocemos a la profesora Pino Caballero, ¿no? Felicitarla a ella porque la verdad que es digamos, el referente en este ámbito y que yo creo que los académicos, el principal indicador de éxito es la capacidad para generar escuela, ¿no? Y la profesora Pino Caballero ha generado escuela. Hay un amplio conjunto de colegas, ¿no?, que están trabajando en este ámbito, si no, no sería posible, ¿no?, pues tener un máster, 2 cátedras, etcétera, ¿no? Por eso, felicidades y gracias, querida Pino Caballero. Y bueno, agradecer a los las múltiples personas, ¿no?, que se han implicado para que esto sea posible, ¿no? Lo comentaba con Pino, ¿no? Cuando algo así sucede, hay muchos cómplices que permiten que esto sea posible, ¿no? De los compañeros del personal técnico de gestión, administración y servicios, desde portería, todos los compañeros que colaboran, nuestros compañeros de la Fundación General de la Universidad de La Laguna, FEGUL, y por supuesto los patrocinadores, que sin ellos pues esto sería, por un lado, difícil y por otro lado carecería de sentido, porque realmente son ellos los que también un poco están detrás en conexión con nuestra sociedad para hacer que este conocimiento sea útil, ¿no? Y nada más, pues desearles éxito, porque si tienen éxito en las reflexiones, en los trabajos de este congreso, pues yo creo que también será un éxito para nuestra sociedad, porque necesitamos conocimiento y necesitamos instrumentos para afrontar un tema tan crucial en este mundo en el que vivimos, ¿no? Tan crucial no solo desde el punto de vista económico, sino desde el punto de vista de la justicia social, algo en lo que evidentemente las universidades públicas tenemos que estar en primera línea. Por tanto, ese deseo de éxito y gracias por el trabajo que van a desarrollar y que siguen desarrollando en esta línea de investigación tan importante. Queda, creo, solo decir que queda inaugurada la 19ª Reunión Española sobre Criptología y Seguridad de la Información. Muchas gracias a todos y a todas.
Bueno, en realidad pueden moverse un poco. Empezamos a las 1:15 con la charla plenaria de Jintai. Si quieren ir al baño, pueden ir al baño y volver. Dime. Lo iba a decir cuando él se hubiera ido, pero lo digo antes de que se vaya. Menudo lujo de rector que tenemos en esta universidad. No me está escuchando, pero escuchándole a él digo, qué lujo de rector tenemos, ¿eh?
This is key here.
Yep.
Use
Or
this.
that, whatever you
Do you
prefer.
have?
Yeah.
Oh, this one.
Yo-
Let me
That
try.
happens also to me.
Yes,
So.
yes. You want to give me? Okay. Yes.
Do you mind if I introduce you in Spanish?
No problem.
No problem.
No problem. Yes.
Okay. I will tell only
just very short.
Truth,
Yes.
true things,
Yes.
and nice things.
Yes, thank you.
Let me find the words I have.
Yes.
We have time.
Yes, take your time. Yes.
So was it raining?
No, not at all.
Oh, that.
So I went running this morning too. Yes, and then in an old town for 20 minutes.
Wow.
Then I walked here. Yes.
Oh. I cannot run. I have a problem with my knees.
Oh, too
I
bad.
had to stop running.
Oh, you did it before?
Yeah, I was used to run.
Uh-huh.
Let me see where I have that. Yeah, here.
Okay,
Perfect.
can start.
So you can move
Yes.
just wherever you want.
Yes. Yes. It's okay, you can leave it. That's okay. I will not sit down.
I will. So we are going to start before. Vamos a empezar antes. Magnífico. O sea, no solo es que seamos puntuales, sino que vamos a empezar antes. Aprovechando que terminamos la inauguración un poquito antes, vamos a proceder con la primera charla plenaria. Le he dicho a Jintai que iba a decirlo en español, me ha dicho que no le importa, que no hay problema. Le he prometido que solo voy a decir verdades sobre él, que son absolutas maravillas, porque como supongo que todos saben, Jintai es uno de los diseñadores del algoritmo Krystal-Kyber. No voy a decir toda su currículum porque es muy extenso, solo voy a decir un par de frases para que sean conscientes de a quién estamos escuchando. Es un lujo tenerlo aquí en el Eurocrypt. Intenté tenerlo y no pudo venir, sino que se conectó por Meet. Do you remember at the Eurocrypt?
Yes.
You had to connect through Meet. But now we have in person, so we can touch him. So, Jintai es uno de los diseñadores del algoritmo Krystal-Kyber, seleccionado por el NIST, por el National Institute of Standards and Technology, en 2022 para convertirse en el estándar de intercambio de claves postcuántico. Y tenía muchísimas más cosas que decir de él, pero no encuentro el párrafo, así que lo voy a dejar así. Así, ¿cómo es lo bueno si breve? No, ¿cómo era? Lo breve, eso, mejor. Y como además estoy hablando en español, pues Jintai, whatever.
Yeah, okay, thank
you
you.
want.
So, bon dias. So you can see I also have a junk position in the Basque Center for Applied Mathematics back home, but my Spanish more or less ends there. So, bon dias. And again, first, I would like to thank the organizer, in particular Pino, for the opportunity to speak here. And again, I apologize my total miscalculation of the temperature here, because I have a friend told me here it's 25 degrees all the time. So I was anticipating that. Okay, so I will start my talk now. So the title of the talk is Post-Quantum Cryptography, A Personal Journey. My name is Jintai Ding. I also work at the Xi'an Liverpool University, which is a university in China, at Suzhou in China. Okay, per the suggestion of Pino, I basically will try to give you the story of why I work in cryptography. I want to tell you my journey through why I'm doing this and so on. And one thing I would like to do is really, I think this talk should be very accessible, explaining you the story about public cryptography and so on. I would like very much, if you have any question, raise your hand. I will try to answer you. Okay, this is the main purpose of my talk. Okay, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I got my bachelor degree at the Xi'an University, and I studied the computational math. That is from 1984 to 1988. At that time, China just had a computer. And at the end of the 4-year education tells me I hated programming. The one reason is because at that time, you don't have typo checks. So if anything goes wrong, you will spend hours checking it. So I hated it very much. So I decided I will not do computational math. No way I'd be writing programming. Okay? And then in 1990, I entered University of Science and Technology of China, where actually I studied number theory. And I studied something called the Ziegel modular form, okay? And I approved a conjecture by C.L. Ziegel, and I got called the Zhongjiajing Prize, which is the annual prize for the best master PhD thesis in China, in mathematics, okay? And then in 1995, went to Yale, okay? At that time, my goal is to study still Ziegel modular forms, okay? And I went to Yale with a purpose. There's one person, his name is called Participation Shapiro. I don't know if you know him. He won also a Wolf Prize. So I wanted to study with him. So I came from China. So I was, 23? I never out of China before. I was very naive, okay? So I went to US because we all thought US is a free country, do or say whatever you want. So I believed that. So I went to the first class of Participation Shapiro. Okay, and he's a Jewish person from Russia. He actually had the Parkinson's disease, but I did not know at that time. So he gave a lecture for 1 hour. I didn't understand anything he said. Okay, but at the end of a class, he asked a question which I understood, which is, do you understand my English? So I was stupid and naive enough to say no. And he stared at me for about 2 or 3 minutes. I don't know, anyone knows him, Participation Shapiro? No, okay, he has very sharp eyes. He's a very scary person actually when he stares at you. I said, oh shit. So I decided to switch. I decided I will not study with him. There's no way I can do it. So instead, I decided to choose something called the representation theory of quantum affine algebras, which is actually the quantum appear already. Quantum affine algebra. It's actually related to string theory and so on. So I did that for 5 years. Okay, and in the end, I will make everything to make sense in the end, okay? So then in 1995, I got a job in Japan. So I moved to Kyoto University at the RIMS, which stands for Research into Mathematical Sciences at the Kyoto University, okay? Actually, I became a Japanese government civil servant because at that time, all the universities in Japan, the national universities, all the professors actually are civil servants. So I was actually a Japanese government officer for a while, okay? So at that time, I continued doing something. I think I did some work, pretty good work, and there's one algebra now called the Dean Iwahara Miki algebra. You can Google it, and this is what we discovered. Then I moved to United States, okay? 1998, moved to United States, and in year 2000, I knew that I got tenured, okay? But in year 2000, I was very unhappy with my life in the following sense. So I've been doing research in the area from 1995 to 2000, 1990 more or less to 2000 for 10 years. I work in this area. I realized something very interesting. I have a routine already in this area. When a problem comes, I more or less know what to do. And I spend enough time in it, I write a paper, publish, that's it. It becomes very boring for me. Okay, I want to do something different. Okay, and I didn't know what to do. Okay, that was the year 2000. But in the year 2000, I saw this news, which changed my life. Okay, so I saw the news. The news is about this guy. His name is Isaac Chun. Okay, the news is very interesting. Okay, he spent $15 million to factor 15 equal to 3 times 5, which my son could do that time as well. Okay. But the explanation is that he actually built a 7 qubits quantum computer to do the work, to the factory. Okay? So when I saw that, I said, oh, this is something very interesting. So I decided, even though I knew nothing about public cryptography, I just decided, okay, this thing is interesting. This thing deserves some attention. So I just gave up everything I did that time. I stopped research in algebra completely, and I switched to cryptography. Actually, I switched to what is called post-quantum cryptography. Okay, then I explain what happened here. This is why I'm doing it. There's a rationale behind. Okay, so this is the first part of the talk. I'll talk about it. Okay, but in order to explain the story, actually, it took me a while to understand the importance of public cryptography. It took me quite a bit. So I started just purely from mathematical perspective. And now, first thing I would like to do today is to explain to you the significance of public key cryptography. Okay, so in my opinion, public key cryptography belongs to what I call the modern cryptography. Okay, and maybe some of you heard the story before, but anyway, I would like to repeat the story. And then people would ask you, when you call modern, what is a classical? So for me, the fundamental difference between public cryptography or modern cryptography from classical cryptography is the classical one is the symmetric cryptography. And the modern one is what called asymmetric cryptography, which is public key cryptography. And I hope to explain the story first, okay? So symmetric cryptography, I think Ryman will be coming, right? He will talk about the AES, actually it's perfect. Yeah, so but nevertheless, I would like to explain a bit what the symmetric cryptography is in the simple form, okay? For humans, the most famous, in my opinion, or the earliest one is called so-called Caesar cipher. And I would like to explain it using English to explain, okay? This is easier because everybody knows. So in English, we have 26 letters, A all the way to Z, okay? And then suppose you want to build a Caesar cipher. What you would like to do is build two circles, and you can rotate them, okay? The inside one you can rotate. And those circles contains the 26 letters in order. For example, I can rotate the inner circle counterclockwise by 4 positions, okay? So the 4 is the key, okay? And then with this, what I show you here, now you can do encryption. What does it mean? So suppose you're Caesar, you will give an order to some generals in England, in UK, okay? And then you would have a message. So you first write the order in plain text, which is in plain English, anyone can read. And then you will do encryption. In this case, encryption is very easy. You take any letter in your plain text, you substitute it, or you replace it with a letter corresponding to the inside, which means when you see letter A, you will replace it by E. When you see letter B, you will replace by F. And then afterwards, you will get what is called a ciphertext, which means the encrypted message. Okay? And suppose the general you will suppose send the message to in England, receive message, and he will what? He will do the opposite way, which means when he received the encrypted message, he will do decryption process, which is what? Map every letter inside and go outside. Okay? Which means whenever he sees letter E, he will replace by A. And then he will recover the what? The original message. Okay? And here the symmetry is very important, which means Caesar and the general have to reach agreement how many positions you rotate. If you use different positions, you will get nothing. So therefore, the sender and receiver must have exactly the same information. So this is the Caesar cipher, okay? And this is a great idea, okay? So a simple example, suppose Caesar tells his general, let's attack the Gauls, okay? And then the encryption will become like that. Therefore, the message is not readable, okay? So this is it, okay. Yeah? And from mathematical perspective, you can see easily for those mathematicians, right? What you do is you have 26 letters. You create a bijective map. One way, what? Is encryption. The reverse, what? Is decryption. That's it. Okay, the rotation, the positions, basically the keys. Okay, of course, the Caesar cipher is not very good in the sense that we can try 26 times, actually 25 times, we can easily recover it. So it's not so good. So we can do something very easily to fix it, which is instead of arranging the letters in order, we can just what? Shuffle the orders in random orders. And then the attack is not easy anymore because there are possible 26 factorial choices. If you try one by one in the old time, there's no way you can do it. Okay? However, as a language, English has a very interesting characteristics. For example, we know in English, one letter, which is letter E, has the highest frequency. So therefore, from attack perspective, as long as you intercept enough ciphertext, you can easily guess which letter is letter E. Okay? Maybe I should ask, anyone tell me what's the second letter with the second highest frequency in English? T. Yes, T. Okay? So therefore, once you receive enough ciphertext, you essentially can decrypt. Because through frequency analysis, you can figure out. You don't have to do 26 factorial. Okay? So therefore, this is still not good enough. So what do we do next? And it's very simple. Why do we only work on one letter? I can work on what? 2 letters, and then shuffle them. Okay, I can do the same thing, which means I'll make a table, consider all possible 2 letters, and then make a bijective map to the other 2 letters. But this is maybe not still good enough. Then we do 3. One problem is that once you do that, the keys become very long. The encryption and decryption process becomes much slower. Okay, nevertheless, we still follow this idea more or less. Okay, and then what do? We use machine, right? So therefore, in the end, once you have machines, we use what? Machine to do encryption decryption. But the basic design is the same idea. Okay, so this is the famous Enigma machine. Okay, and if you look at and in the picture, you can see those rotors, but you can see the 3 rotors, and you can see on the front you have 3 wheels. Those wheels exactly what are the keys? Which position are what decide the keys of the encryption or decryption? That's it. But you can see looks very much like Caesar sci-fi idea. Okay, so this is what happened in the Second World War. Okay, and if you read the history, something very interesting. Okay, so if this machine is very good, why is it only used in submarines? We've never heard of them using in armies and so on. Why not? Why don't we use this nice Enigma machines used all over the place? Okay, it turns out the way the Germans do it is very interesting. Okay, all the submarines, all the submarines, they have exactly same key book. Okay, they all which means one submarine wants to talk to another submarine, they will say on the book on page 5, number 8. Then they can what? They know because they have the key book. Therefore, they know exactly what the same keys that we use. So therefore, you have about 400 key books. And the captain has to take it before they leave the port so they can talk to each other. But imagine if you do the same thing in the army, what will happen? Number one, there are so many numbers of key books because if each small unit has a key book, there are a huge number of them and they can be easily lost. Number 2, if a small unit captured by an enemy and this key book can be lost, and you have to what? Replace everything one more time. It's very costly. But submarine has a very important characteristics, which if an enemy defeats you, what happens? It sinks to the bottom of the ocean. Therefore, the book is kept secret. So it's a fantastic idea in this case. Okay, so and we heard so many stories about it. But one more thing you should realize, symmetric key crypto systems cannot be really scaled up. So this is the point. You cannot give a key book to everybody. Then we all can read each other's message. So there's no encryption. Okay, and of course, from the mathematical perspective, the basic designs of a modern symmetrical is actually very simple. In my understanding, it's more like Chinese cooking, right? When you do stir fry, you have vegetables and meat. You want to mix them. What do? You just what? Try to mix them. So you should remember, in symmetric cryptography, what we are trying to do is build a random bijective map on the finite dimensional space of the vector space. Okay, we would like to build a random map. But if you just use a random bijection, the table is too long. We cannot do it. So what do? We actually use a simple mathematical idea, which means I would like to use simple maps, S1, T1, S2, T2, and so on. Those are what? Linear and nonlinear maps, which are easy to calculate. Then what? Then I compose them. And hopefully, they give us a nice random permutation on the set. Okay, and I would like the map to be efficient, and then you can see the decryption process is just reverse it. Then if the reverse also very simple, then it can be done very efficient. Okay, this is the idea. And then the simplest one explains DES. So the DES is the first modern encryption algorithm designed by US government. And turns out, from mathematical purposes, it's extremely simple. Okay, the linear map S is just shuffle, which means you have x1, x2. For example, you have 62 bits. You divide into 2 parts. First part called x1, the second one called x2. The linear map just swaps them. You map x1, x2 to x2, x1. That's it. And then you have a nonlinear map called T. You map T x1, x2 to x1, and then x2 plus f x1. F with any function you want, as long as you can imprint it efficiently. Okay, and then of course you do S and T, of course, different T's use different F, and then what? You just compose it. Okay, turns out there are mathematical proof such an idea is not bad. For example, in symmetric group theory, we actually can prove with a high probability you pick out any two random elements. As long as not both of them are not even, then there's overwhelming probability it will generate a whole group, which means you compose enough times, you'll get all the possible permutations. Okay, and one more thing, of course, this T also has a very fundamental interesting property, which is the inverse. It's very simple. It's just x1, x2 minus fx1. If it's over binary field, it's actually itself. So from the computer implementation perspective, the encryption decryption process are very cheap what to do and super efficient. So this is the basic idea. Okay, so this is this is DES design. Okay, maybe Ryman might talk about, I don't know. Okay, and anyway, and then we know the history, right? The history is extremely interesting related to the Enigma machine. We know the Germans use it, okay, and then in the end, Turing broke it. But if you read the history carefully, it's not precisely true. Actually, I think the Polish people did it first. One name is Marian Lijewski, and they were stationed in Gdansk between East Prussia and West Prussia, and the Polish people started to decrypt, try to attack Enigma machine before the war even happened. Okay, then they told Turing. Okay, for me, I would like to tell you some interesting story I heard. Okay, so even though Turing designed the machine, the company which actually made the machine, from what I know, is actually made by a company called NCR, which stands for National Cash Register, which is a company in Dayton, Ohio. So Turing used to sleep on the couch in the CTO's home. Okay, this is what I heard. So this company makes cash register, right? You know, when you go pay grocery store. Okay, but for me, the most amazing story is that at the end of the war, after war is over, the Navy went to NCR, asked them, would you like to continue to make computer with us? You know what NCR said? No, we're not interested. So NCR does not exist anymore. So if NCR agreed, probably the Silicon Valley in the United States will be in Dayton, Ohio, not in San Francisco. Okay. Anyway, so they are actually. Now I get interested in history a little bit. Turns out we know U.S. broke Japanese Navy code, but we also actually know Japanese mathematicians did a great job breaking U.S. Army code as well. Okay, the one interesting I would like to tell you is how this is Navajo code talkers. Okay, this is for U.S. Army. Okay, so during the Second World War, in the Pacific War, okay, U.S. want to ensure the communication security for the Army. What they do is they assign each unit a Navajo Indian. Okay, and then how do they talk? Which is, so the officer first will speak English to the Navajo talker, and Navajo talker will openly in the communication using their language tell the other side. When the other hear it, they will translate English and tell the other. So therefore, Japanese can hear the communication, but they don't understand the language. Therefore, what? They could do that. This is an incredible story. Okay, but for me, the amazing story is the one I heard in Brazil. In 2019, I went to Brazil to give a talk in the biggest security conference. The person invited me, his name is Tareda, Professor Tareda. He's a Brazilian Japanese, okay? So what he told me is an extremely interesting story, okay? I told you many times, I still would like to tell it, which is, this is about the Falkland Island War in 1980s. Okay, this is a war between England and what? And Argentina, about this island, okay? And for those who remember, you know that the British sank many of the big ships of Argentina. So as the war moved on, it seems the British knew exactly where the Argentine Navy is. Okay? And then they become a little bit worried. So the Navy, the head of the Navy of Argentina called the Minister of Defense of Brazil, asked him, we are still using Enigma machine in the Second World War. Is it okay? Okay? Actually, even the defense minister of Brazil did not know. He has to call my friend. My friend said, you are so stupid. It was broken in 1940s. But why did that happen? Because the British kept it secret until 1990s. Okay? But in 1980s, the cryptographers knew about it, started to hear rumors about it. But you should remember, the British government is willing to sacrifice the life of Turing to keep it secret. Right? Turing was persecuted as a homosexual person. And they didn't say anything. So recently, I think King Elizabeth apologized to them because they didn't do anything. But there's a reason I tell you the story. Okay, just a second. Okay, I continue. So this is Alan Turing. And then the conclusion is what? We actually have a pretty good communication system using symmetric cryptography. The problem is what? It's not scalable. But it's okay, right? The government, the submarines, they use it. It's okay, no problem. The embassy is still using it, okay? But you just have to be very careful, that's all, okay? But then, in 1960s, we start to build what is called large computer networks. And all the computers want to talk to each other securely. Now we have a problem, right? If you use a traditional way, suppose you have a computer in Australia and computer in Spain, and these two persons have to meet in person, do a key exchange in order to what? To talk securely, because it's a symmetric property. You must have shared keys. So therefore, it's impossible to build an efficient, secure computer network based on purely symmetric cryptography. You just cannot. So therefore, what? We must find efficient solutions to ensure on the computer network, large-scale computer network. Two computers, no problem. You just meet each other one time in life. That's it. Get shared keys. Okay? So in the US, people start to work on it. For those of you who are interested in history, I would recommend the book called Crypto by Stephen Levy. Okay, they tell a story about the public cryptography. But anyway, one interesting person in the story is Diffie. Okay? This guy Diffie. He has very interesting life and characters. So he actually started to pursue this direction first. So at the very beginning is the Diffie and Hellman. Hellman was his advisor in Stanford. Okay? In my opinion, it's mostly Diffie. Okay? So Diffie-Hellman first proposed the idea of public key cryptography. They wrote an abstract paper saying maybe we can do something called asymmetric cryptography. But Diffie and Hellman, in my opinion, their mathematics is not so good, so they could not do it. But nevertheless, wrote a paper. And then come second group of people. Okay? These are Rivest, Shamir, Edelman. I know Shamir very well. And we had time to talk to each other. He told me the story in person, which I could tell you. So the story for these three guys is also extremely interesting. Okay, Shamir got his PhD in Weizmann Institute. He was not working on cryptography. Okay, and then he got a job at MIT. Also very interesting story. Okay, in MIT, the reason he got a job because somebody called Andrew Yao quit his job and gave it to him. And Andrew is also Turing Prize winner related to MPC, multiple computation. Okay, doesn't matter, right? So Shamir went to MIT. And Shamir went there, and then he happened to have a neighbor whose name is Rest. But both of them are Jewish. They like each other. They say we should do something together, but they don't know what to do. Okay, one day, Shamir went to the library at MIT. He sat down. On the table, a paper was left there. Which paper is that? That's the paper of Diffie-Hellman. And we still don't know who put the paper there. And he took that paper, he went to reverse, said we should do it together. But they still could not solve it. And then they asked another neighbor next to them, his name is Edelman. And Edelman is a computer number theorist. So Shamir, computer scientist, Rivest, WE, electrical engineering, Edelman, number theorist. Three of them work together. But in the end, the person who really did it, according to Shamir, is actually Rivest. So he is Jewish, there's a Passover, he got drunk. And then he woke up 6 o'clock in the morning, he called Shamir, say, I got it. Okay, so drinking is not necessarily too bad a thing. Especially maybe a good wine, okay? So this is a really amazing story. This is all coincidence and so on. Okay, they invent this, okay? And again, this is really mathematics behind. Okay? You should understand that the public cryptography use nothing but a very simple fact in mathematics, which is given two large prime numbers. It is very efficient, very easy to multiply them together. But if you give the product, the n, to find the factor is very hard. Now the asymmetry comes in. Okay, so they use this basic idea, design what is called the public key cryptography. Okay, solve the problem proposed by Diffie-Hellman. Okay, so this is the story. Okay, so the basic idea proposed, and then what's the difference? The difference, instead of having symmetric keys, you will have two sets of keys. One is called a public key. You announce to the whole world. Another key is a private key. Okay, so in simplified form is I said is NPQ, but in a more precise way is the public key is given by two numbers, N and E. E is a number co-prime with P minus 1 to Q minus 1, which is all the number. Okay, so the public key is N and E. The private key is the number D. What is D? Is D times E. So D should be invertible, or E should be invertible modulo P minus 1 times Q minus. That's it. But let me just say it in a simple form. The simple form is that the public key is the product. The private key is what? It's a factor. Okay, this asymmetry come in. Okay, what does it mean? It means I can announce my public key, okay, and then everybody in the room can what? Can send me a message openly. Only I, who knows the factor, can decrypt. Therefore, it's highly efficient. I call it one to many, which means I have one key. Many of you, any of you can use it to encrypt message, but only I, who knows PQ, can decrypt. And that's the fundamental property of public cryptography. And you should remember, behind it is efficiency is very important because I only have it announced once, then anyone can use it. That's why it ensures efficient security solution for the network. Okay, one to many. Okay, so this is a fundamental property. Okay. Okay, turns out public cryptography solves. This is about security. Turns out in the large network, there's one more, even more difficult or important problem we have to solve, which is called authentication. Okay, so for those of you who've been to China, now when you go to Chinese train station now, if you listen to the broadcast, it's all about do not pay anybody who calls you to be your uncle to ask you to pay them. Okay, so what does it mean? It means on a large computer network, when we receive a message, one more thing very important, we want to make sure if the message claims is coming from Pino, it should be what? We should have a way to prove it is from Pino. I can verify it, and Pino cannot what? Deny it. Okay, so this authentication is even more important, and public cryptography solve the problem. And what we now have what is called a digital signature. Okay, and digital signature use exactly the same idea. So instead of using N for encryption, I announce my N, which is product P and Q. It will be for verification purpose, which means Pino can announce her N. Afterwards, anybody with this N can verify the message from Pino, and Pino cannot what? Deny it. The only way Pino can sign is what? Using PQ. Therefore, because Pino knows PQ, you are the only one what? Who would sign it. Because this is really a revolutionary solution. It never happened in human history. We can do that. Okay, I mean, these days we sign something, right? And then experts say, I signed. So my signature is terrible. Anybody can imitate it. Okay? We don't really know, do we? But this really fundamentally solves the problem of authentication. Okay, so this is, okay? Let me repeat, okay? So in this case, digital signature is actually even more used than encryption. The public key is for what? Verification, which means anybody who can do basic arithmetics, can do addition, multiplication, can verify a signature is from Pino. But only Pino who knows PQ can sign. And it fundamentally solves what is called authentication problem on a large computer network, which means as long as I announce my public key, then from now on, anyone can verify a message from me or not with the digital signature. Okay, so this is what happened, okay? So in reality, what happened now for secure communication is even more interesting in some way, is we never use encryption send what message. We always use send what keys. Then we still have to go back to symmetric key crypto system. What does it mean? When you do secure communication, what we always do is first do a called authenticated key exchange to get shared keys. And we go back to AES or DES to do communication. Why? Because public cryptography is very slow. Okay, your children, there's no way they can play computer games using public cryptography. You have to use symmetric cryptography. Okay, so therefore, public cryptography in this case, you get shared keys, right? And this is the reason we dare to send our credit card on the internet, because everything is encrypted after you do the key exchange. Okay, and then for the signature, it's just used so broadly. Yeah, one example is what? Windows update, right? We thank Bill Gates, right? For Windows system, one thing you do very often is you do updates, right? You receive message, you still have update. So what does update mean? Update means what? You download a new version of Microsoft operating system and install in your computer, run it again. But in this case, one thing you are very concerned is, how do you know this software package is from Microsoft? And how do you know if somebody changed it or not? So for the digital signature, fundamental solve a problem, which means when you receive an update package, they are digitally signed by Microsoft. And because Microsoft public key is known to everybody, therefore your computer will first check the signature is right before they install. Okay, imagine if you don't have a system, what do we do? I think Microsoft probably every month have to send a CD to all of us. But even if you then buy a CD, when you receive it, how do you know the CD is from Microsoft? So this is really a solution we cannot live without. Okay, digital signature. Okay, and this number. Okay, what is this number? This is a 700-digit number used for Windows XP software update. So what does it mean? Which means if one of you can factor this number, you can what? In the name of Microsoft, send a software update with only one line inside, delete hard drive. All our computer will do it. So this is really incredible, right? We live in the age, mathematicians, if you're smart enough, you have more power than Trump. Or any president or any politician in the world. Right? Because our digital society, our modern digital society, from your banking system to Google login, they all based on public cryptography. So therefore, we are living in the age we trust mathematics as it's a god. Okay, so this is the interesting part about public cryptography. Okay, I just want to give a quick explanation, or just as for entertainment purpose. We all know Bitcoin, right? Anyone knows exactly how Bitcoin works? Oh, okay, good. That's good enough. But I would like to explain to the rest a little bit, right? The Bitcoin turns out is nothing, just a bunch of numbers. Okay, which means that Bitcoin is an open book. Record the Bitcoins, for example, Pino, 5 Bitcoins, Jintai, 10 Bitcoins. But the most interesting here is what? It's related to public cryptography. Why is it called cryptocurrency? The number is not attached to you. The number is actually attached to the public key. So therefore, in the NIST, essentially, okay, in the simplified form, is the ledger keeps public key, how many Bitcoins? Public key, how many Bitcoin? Okay, this is just it. And how do we do transaction? It's very simple. Because if I'm the legitimate owner of the public key, then I can sign a message saying I give this number of coins to Pino's address. Because my public key is known to everybody, then everybody can verify it is from me, legitimately giving you the Pino. And then we all agree, that's it, the transaction is done. So therefore, the ownership is attached to public key. The execution power is related to private key. So if you lose your private key, sorry. Sayonara, the Bitcoins are gone. Okay, nobody can, even God cannot help you. Nobody can help you. Okay? Okay. And then because it's a decentralized system, one thing is important. We want to prevent double spending. You cannot have 5 Bitcoin, you spend 10, right? You cannot allow to do that. So therefore, we have to synchronize transactions all the time. So through what is called mining or proof of work, this is using hash functions, we attach all the transaction to a hard mathematical solution to lock it up. Then we all follow this path. So therefore, proof of work, the purpose of proof of work is to synchronize, to prevent double spending. That's it. That's it. That's just a simple explanation of Bitcoin. So they have two things there. Again, ECDSA, elliptic digital signature ensures the rights. Okay, your public key decides the rights. Your private key decides execution power. Okay, and then hash function to proof of work, POW. So this is for synchronization purpose. So, okay, and then one more thing interesting I want to tell you about key exchange. There's one more interesting key exchange by Diffie-Hellman. Okay, it's called Diffie-Hellman key exchange, and this is even simpler. You can explain to elementary school students. Okay, so what you do is you choose a large prime number and you do all the computation modulo the prime p. Okay, okay, and then Alice and Bob want to get a share of the keys. They will choose openly number G. Now Alice will secretly choose A and compute G to the A, and Bob will secretly choose B, compute G to B, then they will openly exchange. Afterwards, Alice will compute G to the B to the A, and Bob will compute G to the A to the B. They're equal because they're all equal to G to the AB. And this is the famous Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Okay? And why this is important in some way, okay? And again, I'll go back to what is called the forward security, okay? And Diffie-Hellman key become more important in some way because of Snowden's story, okay? So for those of you who know the Snowden story is that there's a movie about him called Citizen 4. If you have opportunity, I would like you to watch it, okay? At the beginning of the Citizen 4, the scenes are a huge building in the desert of Arizona. Okay, so what are those buildings? I mean, I heard the rumors before even that started. Turns out we think, or we believe, in these buildings, the United States government is recording all the internet traffic there. Okay, so in your Google account, you think you deleted the message? No, it's not deleted. There's a copy at least in the what? In Arizona. Okay, then this is related to forward security. Suppose I use one IIS key for my life. Okay, suppose it record all my traffic. The US government may not be able to read my message now. If you record everything, if in the future they can decrypt, then they can what? Read all my past messages. So Diffie-Hellman, if you use it properly, can achieve what is forward security. Okay, so this is why it's interesting. Okay, anyway, so we are now living in the age where we rely on two hard mathematical problems. Number one, integer factorization. Number two, discrete log. If you can defeat these two problems, you are the king of the world. Okay, so this is where we are now. Okay, we are using this. Okay, now comes quantum. Okay, the idea of quantum computing was proposed almost the same time as the Diffie-Hellman invention, 1960s, 70s. One of the first person proposed is Richard Feynman. So he is a Nobel Prize winner. Yeah, and at the beginning, we don't know what to do with. He has this idea we should do quantum computing. Right? We use a quantum mechanics principle to do computation, but we have no idea what we can do with it. So therefore, not much work is done. And then in 1994, 1995, come this guy, Peter Shor. Okay, he invented what is Shor's algorithm. What can he do? He can do both integer factorization and discrete logarithm efficiently if we can build a large-scale quantum computer. Okay, even though this paper was published, it's very interesting from a theoretical perspective, but people still didn't pay attention, didn't care, because we don't know if we can build a quantum computer. There's no such a thing existed before. So again, come to my story, and this guy in year 2000, Isaac Chuan, he did it. 7 qubits, factor 15 equals 3 times. But it's what? It is based on Shor's algorithm. Okay, so this is the only problem is scaling. Okay, so that's what happened. Okay, so therefore, you should realize because of Shor's algorithm, if people like IBM or somewhere can develop a powerful quantum computer, then we're all screwed. So therefore, we propose to do something new called a post-quantum cryptography. The purpose is to develop public key crypto system that could resist future quantum computer attacks. So I started work on in year 2000, just on my own. I started work, okay? And then I had a chance to go to Germany in 2006. I met more people, and we had the first post-quantum crypto conference and so on. But at the initial stage, only very people working in the area. But then this thing happened. So this I remember very clearly, okay? This is the 19th of August, 2015. I got a call from Germany, from my friend, say, Jintai, you should look at this web page. So I went this web page. At the time, I just happened to get my first cell phone, so I took the picture immediately, okay? The most important line is this line. Okay, I read to you. IAD will initiate a transition to quantum resistant algorithms in not too distant future. So which means in 2015, the US government, so this is the NSA web page. IAD is the Information Assurance Division. So the United States government decided they will do post-quantum cryptography. Okay, so US is very interesting, okay? Even though NSA belongs to the Defense Department, the security standard actually belongs to what? The Commerce Department. So it's done by NIST, which belongs to Commerce Department. NIST stands for National Institute of Standard Technology. Okay, so they decide to do it, and they start to take actions and so on. Like they decide we cannot use anymore and so on. Okay, and NIST again emphasize they only want 2 things. Number 1, key exchange for secure communication. Number 2, digital signature for authentication. That's it. Okay, so they started the process, and for post-quantum cryptography, there are 5 main families. Okay, code-based, hash-based, isolation-based, lattice-based, and multivariate. I mostly work on the last 2 areas. Okay. So today I will tell you a little bit what I had done as a mathematician, okay? So when I started, okay, I would like to do what I was planning to do is to build a post-quantum key exchange related to Diffie-Hellman. Okay, and as a mathematician, actually the idea is very simple. I noticed that the reason Diffie-Hellman works is because I have two functions. The number one function is fx equal to x to the 8th power. The number two function is hx equal to x to the bth power. And they commute under composition, which is mean x to the 8th power to the bth power equal to x to the bth power to the 8th power. Okay, so I realized, if you can find any function commute, then you should be able to do a new Diffie-Hellman. But you want to be nonlinear. There are many attempts to build Diffie-Hellman. They all failed. For example, many people use braided groups. The reason is because it's not nonlinear. Okay, I will not go over the details later. Okay, and then I had a PhD student. We spent 5 years looking for it. We couldn't find anything. And 5 years later, I found a paper written by Joseph Ritt in 1923. Okay, he proved a very simple mathematical theory. He says the following: given two rational functions, if they commute under composition, complex number, there are only three possibilities up to isomorphism, if they are non-trivial. The three functions are: number one, power functions, x to the a, x to the b. Number two is Chebyshev polynomials, coming from cosine functions, okay, sine functions. Okay, and number three, rational functions come from elliptic curve. So basically, Joseph Ritt already knew the only possible to Diffie-Hellman is use group theory. Okay, number one is power functions are the automorphism group over punctual plane, and Chebyshev polynomial are the morphism group of the unit circle, and elliptic curve are automorphism groups over the elliptic curve. That's it. Okay, so here maybe I should explain what is non-trivial. There's a trivial way to build a commutable map. Is you just run it, pick a function f, you compose by itself many times. Again, you compose by itself, they commute. But they are using this for us for the purpose of Diffie-Hellman key exchange. Okay, 5 years. So from the year 2000 until 2005, 2006, with a PhD student, we tried to do Diffie-Hellman. We could not do it. So the student have to write a paper on something else to graduate. Okay, so this is Joseph Ritt. If you're interested, you can find this paper. The title is called The Permutable Rational Functions, 1923. So I give up. Okay, and then in 2006 and 2007, I went to Germany to become a Humboldt Fellow, and then that's the first time I heard about so-called learning with error problem, LWE. And then I noticed that, and I realized I had the opportunity now. Okay, the idea is actually very simple, related to the Diffie-Hellman, related to the braid group idea. So in mathematics, there's a very simple commutative properties. Given three matrices, S1, A, and S2, we know we can multiply the first two and then multiply the third one, or multiply the last two and multiply the first one. This is so-called associativity. But you cannot use that for key exchange because then you will be dead because they are linear maps. Then you just use what? LWE idea, which means you add noise to achieve what you want. So this is what I did, okay? And here I would like to emphasize, so I'm very interested in history and so on, okay? Turns out that we at the beginning believed that Diffie-Hellman and then ISA invented everything. And then later we realized the British actually was again a step ahead, okay? So number one is that there's a guy called James Ellis in GCHQ. He wrote a paper essentially says the same idea of Diffie-Hellman. It was 1969 actually, but he was not allowed to publish. And later, Clifford Cox, he invented ISA, and Malcolm Williamson invented Diffie-Hellman, both in 1973, again in GCHQ. They were not allowed to publish, and we heard about it later. Okay, and then you would ask a very interesting question, right? Why does James Ellis study this? Turns out James Ellis' idea was very much inspired by a paper he read, which is written by somebody from the United States in 1945. In this 1945 paper, it's essentially proposed idea more or less like LWE. Okay, what's the idea? The idea is very simple. Suppose you have a communication channel. I would add noise in the channel, and you speak, you send a message over the channel. Because I'm the person who added the noise, therefore I know how to denoise it. Therefore I can read it, and other people cannot. If you think carefully, LWE is essentially doing that. Okay? Which means your dual encryption has noise in it because I give you the public key. I know how the noise is added, therefore I can take it out, therefore I can do it, and nobody else can. So this I would like to emphasize. Okay, this is James Ellis, okay, GCHQ. Okay, now we do a little bit of mathematics. Okay, I would like today first introduce the definition of learning with error problem. Okay, again, if you have any questions, you should ask me. Okay, number one, the definition of the problem is on ZQ. Z mod Q. Q is a prime number. Okay, everything is on ZQ. Okay, so what is the problem I would like to give you? The problem I will give you is the following. You know the B's. You know B1 all the way to Bm. You know the vector B. And you know all the Aij's. Your job is to find the secret vector S1 to Sn such that B subtracted A times S would get what is called the error vector. What does it mean by error vector? Which means I would like that the EI terms, each of them, okay, follows a Gaussian distribution on ZQ. So here, the ZQ, the definition of ZQ is slightly different. Normally, when we define ZQ mod Q, we choose the representative from 0 to Q minus 1. Here, no. We choose from minus Q minus 1 over 2 to Q minus 1 over 2. And then here, what is discrete Gaussian? Discrete Gaussian is just you choose a Gaussian distribution, okay? And then you assign values at each point, and then you normalize it. That's it, okay? But you should notice that if you look at this distribution, most probability are concentrated around the 0. So therefore, you should know those EIs, most times they are very small. So therefore, if we view as an integer, and then the E1 to EM, this vector is a short vector. So this problem was posed by Regev. His fundamental contribution is that he proves that if you can solve this problem, you can solve what is called the approximate shortest vector problem over a lattice. So this is how it's related to lattice. Okay, this is the LWE problem. Okay, so I hope you can understand, right? So here, okay, and those Aij's follows uniform distribution. This is learning with that. Okay, and then I can explain to you the kick chain, Diffie-Hellman kick chain. This is also extremely simple. But in order to give a simple exposition, I would prefer to use ring learning with error problem. And in this case, the problem is defined over a ring. This ring is RQ ZQX over XM plus 1. So again, what do you get? You get the ring element B, and you know A, and your job find the S such that B equal to A times plus E. And E, again, is follow discrete Gaussian. What does it mean? E now is a polynomial of degree up to n minus 1. When I say E follow discrete Gaussian, which means each coefficient of E, they are what? They follow the discrete Gaussian independently. Okay, so this is ring learning with open. What we can prove that if you can solve this problem, you can solve what is called the approximate shortest vector over ideal lattice. That's it. And the reason we like ring is because it's more efficient, not because of anything else. The security is not necessarily better, or even worse. Okay, so now we can do Diffie-Hellman exchange. The idea is extremely simple. Okay, you first fix the ring, and then you choose A. This A is almost like the G in the Diffie-Hellman case. And then Alice will choose SA and EA. These are two elements follow discrete Gaussian, which means they're short. And Bob do the same. Bob will choose SB and EB, but you multiply 2 on both sides. And then once you exchange, Alice will compute KA, which is SA times PB plus 2EA prime. Remember, SA is the secret of Alice. And Bob does the same thing. And if you finish the computation, you notice that immediately that these two sides have the red part called A times SA plus SB, and this I call the central part. And this part both sides have. And then the other ones are called error terms, which means you automatically have two things close, but not the same. But if you look at the formula, you can see there's multiplication of 2 there. Therefore, naively, you would say, hey, I just do modulo 2 on both sides. Pretend they're integers, then I get to share the secret. But no, it's not that simple. The reason is following, right? And let's look at the Q equals 17, okay? And if you look at 11 and 7, they look like the difference is 4, therefore what? If you do modulo 2, they are the same. But remember, we use representative from what? From minus 8 to 8. Therefore, now the other side becomes minus 6, and the parity disappears. So why is that? The reason is very simple, okay? So suppose you have some values, okay? The values on dot. If given the value, if you add the 2 so-called error terms, suppose the error term is on top. If the error is small, then you guarantee the parity remains. But if the main term is near the border, it's possible one error will jump up, the error will jump down. Once you jump down, you cross the border, and you will do one more modular Q operation, and the parity will be broken. Therefore, you cannot do that. Okay, so this is what I did. Okay, and so what I did is that I proposed this simple function called signal function. Okay, so which means when Alice Bob did this KA-KB exchange, after one side, only one side, have to look at its value, and then look at where they live. If they live on the top, it assigns the value 0. If they live at the bottom, assign 1 and send to other side. So this is a slightly different from Diffie-Hellman. Diffie-Hellman, you compute G to the A and G to B, exchange. You're done. You can say sayonara. That's done. But here, one side has to do one more step. And with this, and you can do what is called key exchange. This is very simple. If we see 0, both sides just do modulo 2 operations. If you see 1, both sides will add Q minus 1 over 2 on both sides. So you should know in the finite field arithmetic, if you add Q minus over 2, the bottom half will go to the top half, the top half will go to the bottom half. Then you can modulo 2, then you get the shared keys. And that's it. That's the new post-quantum key exchange. Okay, this is what I did. Okay, so therefore, we could do what is called new Diffie-Hellman key exchange. So I would like to emphasize very, very much here. Many people realize this fact. We can get two values very close, but we could not reconcile because they believe we can find some way to do that. Because my 5 years, in some sense, wasted, but it's not actually wasted, make me realize you just cannot do that. You have to do something more. Therefore, it's forced me to add the signal function, which is now used in Kyber as well. Okay, so that's it. So this is the new key exchange. And this is a formula express that, okay, how it's done. I don't want to give the details, and that's it done. Okay, and then concerning this, actually, there's a very interesting story. In some sense, it is intellectual property dispute. So I published in paper in 2012, and this guy, Chris Piker, published another paper in 2014. He claimed he invented a new thing. He just changed my signal function to the new signal function like that. Of course, I disagree, but anyway, they used it in so-called New Hope and so on. So, but nevertheless, thank God that I had a patent, so I could defend myself. Otherwise, I will not be able to do that. Okay, so therefore, one suggestion for young people here, if you do some very good cryptographic invention, better write a patent. Okay, yeah, okay. So again, so we can prove this is secure and so on. This is no problem. Okay, yeah. And here I would emphasize that indeed the lattice-based crypto, because of LWE, we can do many things, include FHE. I think some of the talks here will be about FHE, but they're all based on a learning with error problem, okay, and so on. Okay, now let's go back to the NIST call. So NIST made a call December 16 in Fukuoka, said we'll make a new standard. The deadline is November 2017, okay? So again, so maybe I will not tell the story. Okay, so the criteria is security costs and algorithm implementing characteristics. Then when we went through 6 years, and in 2022, they announced the first 4 batch of the result. So they call 2 main algorithms. One is Kyber, the key exchange. Another one is dilithium. So I'm on the Kyber. My name is on the Kyber, and other 2 alternatives are Falcon and Sphinx Plus. Okay. You should remember, Kyber and dilithium are considered 2 mains. The other 2 are called alternative. But one thing you should observe very interestingly is that you have only 1 key exchange, 3 signatures. Why? Turns out the fundamental reason is that the signature is much more broadly used than key exchange. And we could not find the one single key signature scheme that can satisfy all the needs. Therefore, we choose more. Okay, so this is what happened. And this is the plaque, we got the NIST and so on, okay? And now Kyber is the so-called FIPS 203, dilithium the FIPS 204 is completely standardized and ready to be used. It's implemented already, okay? And I'll continue a little bit, okay? So despite that fact that NIST has 3 signatures, and NIST has made 1 more call for signatures with deadline of June 1st, 2023, okay? And this finally, there are 50 submissions. So NIST announced it on the 17th of July, 2023. And after 1 day, 5 or 6 of them are broken. Okay? So here, I would like to emphasize here that it is not easy to design them. Okay? And there's 1 more call in China coming up. Okay? And the preliminary deadline is the 30th of April. And the final deadline is June of the 30th of June. If you think you have the you have the ability, I suggest you try. Okay, there's 1 more round that comes in China. Same thing, call for the what? Call for the standard. Okay, if you're interested, if you want no information, you can ask. But I want to assure you, if you don't know what you're doing, we'll break it. Okay, yeah. So now I would like to talk a little bit about mathematics again. Okay, think about mathematician. Okay, so you can see that we have 4 algorithms, right? 3 of them are lattice: Kuiper, dilithium, and Falcon. It seems we like lattice. Okay, the lattice is very interesting. Okay, lattice has one property which nobody has, called proof security. Okay, remember the definition of proof security. Proof security in cryptography doesn't prove it's secure. What we prove is that given a family of crypto systems, if I can prove it's secure, it means if I can defeat the whole family, then I can solve a hard mathematical problem. It's very theoretical. Okay. But once you choose the parameters, what do you care about? What is called the practical security, which means how much the cost to break it. Okay? And then if you look at all the lattice schemes, Kuiper, dilithium in particular, okay, they are based on learning with error problems. The proof security of learning with error problem has conditions, which means in the learning with error problem, there are parameters. Only if the parameter satisfies a certain condition and it's proof secure. If it does not satisfy a condition, we cannot prove it. But then if you look at Kuiper and dilithium, none of the parameters satisfy the requirement, which means I have proof security schemes, right? But when I design practical applications, I ignore it. I just choose some numbers, almost like randomly. Of course, not randomly. And then how do we know it's secure? Then what we do is called a practical security, which means we want to know how hard it is to break it practically. We want to know a complete estimate, okay? And the question is, do we really know? So I want to assure you that it's not easy, okay? Okay, and in the case of proof security, okay, in the case of the lattice things, okay, and we have a lot of interesting dilemmas. I can write it, okay, I can explain to you this, okay? So in terms of lattice cryptography, the best way to attack is do what is called a lattice reduction. Okay, and so if you're interested in practical security, you would like to know the efficiency of those algorithms, how good they are. Okay, and the first important algorithm is LLL. Okay, LLL has one very interesting property. Okay, so in LLL, we can prove that the vector you can find is more or less of the length 1.07 to the nth power times number 1. Number 1 is the shortest vector. We cannot find the shortest one. Let me repeat. Okay, given dimension n lattice, theoretically, we prove you should be able to find the vector. The length is more or less 1.07 to the nth power times number 1. Number 1 is the length of the shortest vector. But if you do experiments, it is not 1.7. It is 1.02 to the nth power times what? Number 1. What does it mean? It means that the theoretical estimate is much worse than practical result. And by now, we still have no idea why. So therefore, what I'm trying to convince you is that the practical security lattice is not really solidly supported by theory or even practice. All the estimates come from we run experiments and then we do what? We do interpolations, then we say the securities. We have no proof. Okay? And then again, for my part, so I told you I study Ziegler modular forms. Turns out the Ziegler modular form is actually what? The key part of Ziegler modular form is study shortest vector problem. So from here, I would like to make a summary about my career in the sense that I did a computation number theory. So therefore, I understand the computation. So in cryptography, it's all about computation. Okay, I did algebra, so I therefore understand all this, the ring structure, what is the one. And also, I happen to study Ziegler modular form. Actually, I understood lattice before because I did not know it was lattice. Only I started to do lattice cryptography, lattice reduction, I realized what I learned is exactly what happened here. Okay, so recently I had a chance to visit EPFL. So there's a first methodist there. Her name is Marina. Okay. She more or less, in my understanding, wrote a paper to prove that ring learning with error problem is almost as hard as random analytic problem, based on Ziegler modular form theory. Actually, I could understand it. Okay, so I feel very lucky in the sense that almost all the mathematics I learned, all the way from Xianjiaotong to USCC to Yale, and everything I learned, I used in cryptography. So I'm very lucky in this sense. Okay, so this is okay, and then I also start to work on lattice attacks. Okay, so in lattice attacks, the most important problem we want to solve is called SVP problem, which is given lattice, given a random basis, you would like to find what? The shortest vector. This stands for SVP problem. And there's a very nice challenge set up by Johannes Buchmann, okay, in 2000, 13. This is called SVP challenge. So what they do is that they give you a list of lattice spaces, okay? And if you find the shortest vector, they will put your name there. You are the word bracket keeper, okay? So we start work on this after I moved to China, and then in last year, in 2025, in March, we actually solved SVP 200, which means we developed a new algorithm, solve so-called memory bottleneck. Now we actually practically could solve what? SVP problem of dimension 200. And we use 10 terabytes of memory. Okay, so this is what happened in last year. Okay, okay. And this year again, we actually solved 2,210. So I would like to give you a little bit explanation of the context. So in year 2000, when Johannes Buchmann set up the challenge, the highest challenge was dimension 200. Which means what? He actually told me. At that time, they did not believe in any foreseen future we could solve dimension 200. Therefore, they just stopped 200. So after we solved 200, they put 210 there. We just solved 210. Okay, so the interesting point is that does that to do with the Kyber security? So here's the number you should remember. If you can solve SVP 400, you can defeat Kyber 512, which is level 1 Kyber. So we are 119 dimensions away. Okay, so this is if anyone interested, you should look into this. You'll definitely make a name for yourself. If you can solve any of this. Okay, this is a Kyber. Okay, and then we also solve the Kyber. So there's in Bochum, there's also carbon chariot designed by Alexander May, which means they actually set up a Kyber, small Kybers. We actually just solved Kyber 256. Again, this is world record. Okay, so we could solve that too. Let me repeat. So we could solve Kyber 256, and the first nearest standard is Kyber 512. So we are halfway. Okay, so this is what happened in the lattice challenge and so on. So here maybe I should emphasize that. So all the knowledge I learned before about lattice becomes very useful here. Okay, intersignal modular form and so on. Okay, yeah. And now I will talk about the last topic. Okay, I will try to convince you. So one of the purpose of this talk, I try to convince you post-quantum cryptography is an area. If you're young, I think you should get into that. Okay, so NIST made a standard. Now we are into the next stage called migration. So I believe it's a great challenge and it's a great business and research opportunity. So what does it mean, migration? Remember, right now in our computer, in our cell phone, we use public cryptography all the time. When you log into your bank account, when you do bank payment, you are using it all the time. So the US government in year 2000 issued this called NSM-10, National Security Memo 10. This is during Biden administration. They basically said in the United States, all the companies, all the government agencies must migrate to post-quantum by year 2035. We only have 9 years left. I don't think we can do it, but nevertheless, we are in a hurry to do this, okay? So after US government, the G7, Spain is G7, right? Member of G7? No? Oh, sorry. My apology. So G7 also will do it, okay? So INF, MF will do it. The US Homeland and Security will do it. So in US, actually, in NIST, they set up a new organization called NCCE, National Center of Cybersecurity, and they are now lead the initiative to do all the post-quantum migration related work. So if you are interested in the area, I would like to suggest that you go to this website, and you can find all the information that you need to know about what's going on in post-quantum migration. Okay, so now I think I would like to do the summary of my talk. Okay, the summary of talk is that I think Parker will talk about the IBM quantum computer. Maybe he will give a date when the quantum computer will come. And then, so we are in the stage what? We have to update all our systems, everything. Every computer, every cell phone. Okay, I believe it's a great opportunity and also relate to privacy or some of the talks here and so on, okay? And so for cryptography, the one challenge I will explain to you that there will always be a challenge in cryptography because we always have a problem of balance between security and efficiency. So in general, in cryptography, one thing very important is that normally, more efficient, less secure. But where is the sweet spot? We do not necessarily agree at all. We always fight. Okay, we never could reach agreement. So now NIST decided, not because we all agree. For example, for those of you know, Daniel Bernstein, he wrote so many emails against NIST all the time. And so, okay, so therefore, I think more work still to be done. For example, in my opinion, Kyber 512 should not be used if you believe that it must satisfy the NIST requirement. I don't think it will stand. Okay, according to the NIST requirement, which is what? Level 1 should have a security level of 2 to the 143 attack complex. I don't think so. Okay, and just as a entertainment, many people ask me question: will Bitcoin be okay if you have a quantum computer? No way. Bitcoin must upgrade. That's why Bitcoin stands no chance to be up against quantum computer. Okay, so I think this is the end of my talk, and thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Any question? Any? Yes. Yeah.
Thank you. So first of all, I want to thank you for the talk. Thought it was very, very interesting. I'm a little curious about the dimension that you introduced us to break the Kyber 512. 12?
Yes.
Yeah. So you said that if SVP is solved for 400, then you will be able to solve the Kyber.
Yeah.
I understand that's the dimension in which you implement the sieving algorithm.
Yes.
For the SVP.
Yes.
So can you maybe enlighten us a little bit more about why is that?
Yes. So given the Kyber, when you attack it, we don't use SP directly. We use what we call BKZ.
Yeah.
Okay. But in BKZ, you call a subroutine called SVP subroutine. Okay. So therefore, you do not go directly 512 SVP. You go smaller dimension. So therefore, if you have the power to call 400 dimension SVP, we can easily prove that is guaranteed to confine the secret key, therefore defeat Kyber 512. So therefore, the SVP is not directly used. It will use as a subroutine inside the BKZ to guarantee you get a good vector, short enough. That's it. Yeah, we do not use directly SVP. So therefore, you have to call it many times, not only one time.
Yeah.
Yes.
I know.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
So, kind of following up on his question.
Yeah.
Did you use any new techniques to break the 200, 220 instances?
That's a very good question. Yes, we did something new. Okay, so we use what is called sieving method. Okay, so let's recall a little bit about SVP. So SVP problem appeared. We don't have good method. Only in 2015 we start taking 2013 we start taking it seriously. Okay, at the beginning what we do is called enumeration. So enumeration is basically brute force search. If you first run LLL, find the basis pretty good. So good which means so in lattice reduction, a good basis which means they're almost orthogonal. So if you find the orthogonal basis, you solve the problem. We cannot find the orthogonal, but they're getting pretty good. Okay, and then you can decide a certain range, which means suppose you find a basis V1 to EM, and then you decide range, for example, from -2 to 2, and you do all possible linear combination of all the coefficients between -2 and 2. We know for sure by the spare packing theory, there should be one of them should be shortest vector. So we do brute force search. So here the computation complexity is very high, but the memory complexity is low. You just do brute force search. And then we start to do sieving. Okay, the sieving method is actually very simple. What you do is you choose 2 to the alpha n vectors. Alpha is a parameter like 0.3, something like that. You just first collect all of them. This you should be short enough. Okay, this are randomly picked. And then you do sieving. What does it mean sieving? Sieving is actually simple. Okay, essentially, so in this set, you will pick all possible combination of 2 vectors. You just add or subtract. And then if you find a shorter one, you put the shorter one into this set and remove the longest one. That's essentially it. But here the fundamental problem is memory. Okay, you have to record 2 to the alpha n, you have to put them all the time. So what we did? Okay, so in the Kyber security argument, they use memory cost as part of justification for security levels. So what we did? We found a way to build what is called but not we found a way. We implemented a BGJ. So there is a sieving algorithm proposed by BGJ, Becker, Gamma, and Antoine Ju. Okay, this is in 2015. I don't really know why they never successfully implemented. Okay, what we did is we did called a 4-level BGJ, which means you have those vectors first, okay, large set, and then we do the layer the bucket, which means we try to do something, put them into different places, and then by doing that we move all the vector into smaller batches, and then we do sieving only on the small batches, and then we successfully find the shortest vector. So the fundamental breakthrough we did is we found a way, implemented the BGJ with the right level, therefore we could achieve the maximum memory efficiency, therefore we remove the memory bottleneck. Algorithm-wise, we did not do anything, not really. We did a few small improvements, but mostly is we removed the bottleneck. So this paper will appear in Eurocrypt this year in Rome.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just a quick follow-up. How good or how close to orthogonal has the base to be for it to apply?
Oh no, they are not so. So there's in theory, in lattice theory, they are not so. So number one is they have to be above the angle has to be bigger than 60 degrees for sure. If it's not, then they are bad. But they are. So I would say they are maybe 80. They are maybe 80 something degrees. We never have a theory, but they are pretty close. But because the dimension is high, even they are almost orthogonal, it's still very difficult to.
Yeah, but the technique you use for you didn't like require very close to orthogonal or any more
we do. Yes, we do. So you have to always do what is called a pre-processing.
Okay.
You run LL or smaller BKZ, such that you will try to make them as orthogonal as possible. Okay. Then it will help you greatly improve the quality of your shaping algorithm.
And do you have like a bottom line of how it has to be at least this?
No, we do what we can. We achieve, okay. Yes. So, but you ask a very good question. I think maybe there are, so what I believe is asymptotically, okay, given the random basis, if n goes to infinity, they are almost, I guarantee they are, or I more or less can guarantee they are orthogonal.
Okay.
But in the dimension 2000, they are far away from orthogonal. There should be something there. But asymptotically, they should be orthogonal. But when n is big enough, even though they're orthogonal, almost orthogonal, even they're 89 degrees, it doesn't help you because n is too large.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the problem.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Vamos perfectamente en tiempo. Tienen para 2 minutos para ir al baño y cada uno ir a la sesión que le